Thursday afternoon.
I thought she was coming tonight.
She said she'd be here tonight. Leaving in the morning.
Fred is here, Mary is here, Sherry is here, Joe is here, Lisa's here, Jim's here, I'm here. Bill, Arliss is in Southeastern, and Bill Sheffield is in Kotzebue, I think. So, Jane is in Bethel, is that right?
She's going in the morning, I understood.
We have minutes of the meeting of June 18th that was submitted to you once, and there was an objection, and they've been modified and returned to you last week. And the chair, there are no objections to the minutes as submitted last week of the June 18th meeting. They'll stand approved as read. There are no appearance requests. No unfinished business except the charter. I understood that Ed Height would be here as insurance claim to discuss this. He's apparently not here yet, so when he comes, if it's all right with you folks, I'd interrupt long enough to take him on.
That has to do with section 1406, notice of claims.
All right. Committee reports. I have the Charter Production Committee and Public Information Committee, and maybe it'd be easier to take bring up under other business the report that we might have of the Borough Assembly meeting last night that we attended. And Jane Angvik and myself and Joe Josephson were there, Pat Purnell. And Joe and I and Jane sat in the front seat. I merely repeated what we had given them last week and identified the type of vote it was, and turned the meeting over to Joe. And Joe can tell you fairly well what he said. Maybe you can do it briefly, faster than you did. Oh my gosh.
Frank.
Speaking of, it doesn't matter because we weren't adequately persuasive, but
Basically, you did tell them to give them a few alternatives.
Well, yeah. I have prepared some notes about assembly apportionment. Have you all got those?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Fred, have you got a copy?
What's those?
No.
They're on the back of this packet.
There probably are more than 4 choices or courses of action that we can follow. One of the alternatives that I suggested to the Assembly was that if they wanted to adhere to what they did so far as the second-class borough is concerned, that is to take a multi-member plan and ask voters to approve it or reject it, that they could still at the same time have a referendum with a multi-member plan, a single-member plan, and if they desired an at-large plan or something else, and put that before the voters at the same time with the understanding that the results of the referendum would be guidance to the charter and not operative if the charter lost. The meeting ended with a couple of developments. First, they rejected the motion to rescind the adoption of the apportionment ordinance, but they came to the realization that they will have to amend it before the election because it contains language that purports to bind the charter to their plan, and they don't know at this juncture whether the commission would agree to that. The second thing was that the presiding officer, Mrs. Dodson, invited us, if we wish to do so, to make a formal request for a referendum that could be held, at least as Mrs. Coffey indicated to the chair, at the same time that the special election is held in August on the apportionment of the second-class borough assembly. So, one of the options that are is listed in your notes is the possibility that the Charter Commission could request. That's item 4. Could request the Assembly to conduct such a referendum election. I think that's about all that needs to be said about it.
Substantially, that covers it. I'm glad Joe prepared this notes about it. There are other options that you could dream up. And I would hope that you would give it some serious consideration in the next couple of days. First opportunity that we have a full commission, or as nearly as possible to a full commission, I'd like to discuss it further and see if there is any option we wish to take, or whether we wish to just, by not taking any option, agree to the Assembly reapportionment plan. We know that Mary is busy with her petition. I don't know how it's coming, but and there may be some question somewhere along the line as to whether it will work out or not. But we have a number of alternatives, and I wouldn't want to ask you to make a decision on it at this juncture without the other 3 members that normally are here being present. There's a possibility that after 5 on Thursday, all of us might be present.
Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Holmes, who's the keeper of the calendar, tells me that if the Commission wishes to do item 4, it will have to take that action by Monday. You mean present it to the Assembly Monday?
Yeah. As I understand the situation, Mary Coffey said that the request for a referendum to be placed on the August 12th ballot. As I understand the timing on this, Mary Coffey said that it could still be done by Monday, and that would give her time to alert the papers and do the required advertising. I'm a little bit unsure of that. Is that because it's a 21-day advertising requirement?
Actually, the last day would be the 23rd, but she would prefer having everything taken care of on the 13th, so it isn't a last minute thing. You know,
Yeah.
thing back up 21 days.
But she also has to alert
Have to have
the
it.
papers.
Yes,
and
she
things.
has to have her advertising 5 days ahead.
Okay.
Space of print.
So that puts us really to this Monday if we wish to do the referendum.
Well, you're not going to have time at all then, because we have no assurance that everybody's going to be here Thursday.
I see no particular reason to, put off for one, to one day or another. We would pick up our list. I think we lose Jane. Is she still on?
Jane just came in.
Yeah, but I mean, on Thursday. She'll be gone Thursday.
Friday morning.
That's correct.
Jane would be gone Thursday.
Yeah.
Arliss would be back. Bill would be back.
I don't know.
I mean, that sort of.
Well, we can.
So actually, if we're waiting for a full commission, we might as well get it. Well, this is, of course, my feeling about it. We could have it near a full commission. Yeah. 8 presidents now. Normally, we also have Bill and Arliss. Well, when you mentioned 50, Fisher, we also have Fisher.
Mr. Chairman, I asked Pat to give everybody a copy of the wording of the referendum initiative so that you would be aware of it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't, perhaps we should go ahead. I don't,
Well, in view of what Shirley says,
there's also the problem that the Thursday meeting will have a rather limited time available to us because of the Thursday night fair.
well, I don't, not arbitrary, I would like to see have the other two if that's possible. Shane, are you going to be here Thursday night?
No,
You're not. I have no assurance that Bill will be here. Nor that Arliss will be here. How about Fisher? Fisher has assured us that he would not be available for this period of time. Can it be reached by phone?
When is Mr. Fisher available?
Did he resign? No, he has not resigned. He stated he would not be available for two weeks, and that was all. 10 days ago. We'll never have a full commission.
Can we take a moment to read the initiative, Mr. Chairman?
Right.
It would take some time to explain what it's all about. I have tried several approaches. I think I've got one tonight that was cut down because did you give them one of each? What, one of each? They have to have the initiative as well. No, because the referendum is worded so long as they amend it to include choice for voters between a single man and multiple mandates. It will not be. That I don't have any strong feelings about the preference between one and two. I don't think that.
What?
He's the single member. Is she changing her mind?
No.
No.
this is the referendum, which would...
This is the ordinance they would like to repeal by referendum. Now you have, just gave you the initiative. Okay.
It's the least objectionable in some ways.
What you first read was what the Assembly intends to put on the ballot.
All right, she's on Trombley again now.
Sure.
Oh, never mind.
James, the only thing I oppose postpone the introduction, because if they insisted on having the referendum voted on, they told it was people's choice. It's the only thing that could cause postponement of election, and that would be reasonable, so I don't really think that. Yeah, it's only been.
The paper tonight.
Mary, as I read this, there are several stages in this. First, if the petition is submitted and accepted, then there would be an initiative, and the effect of the initiative would be to require the Assembly to offer alternatives. Is that right?
That's right.
And then that would be one election. Then there would be another election.
Wait a minute, did you read the referendum?
Yeah.
All right, referendum says that it would not be repealed unless they refuse to amend it to give the voters a choice between a single member and a multiple member district. Number one, it wouldn't be repealed unless they refuse to amend it to give the voters a choice between a single member and a multiple member district. And the initiative says that they will give the voter a choice.
Why is
Now, as the lawyer that helped me word it said, he said that if we got the initiative done by Wednesday, it would force the issue on the regular election. If by chance they switched from the multiple member district that was spoken to in the ordinance, you see, they did not switch from the districting as spoken to in the ordinance. There's nothing about either one that should cause postponement of the election so long as they do give the people the choice.
Now let me finish then. I really am puzzled. There would be an election if your procedure prevails. Would the voters have an election first as to whether the Assembly should be required to present them with two plans? What's the first proposition?
All right. The first thing that will come up is the referendum. And the referendum calls for a special election, doesn't it, within 30 days or such a matter?
That would be the repealer of the ordinance, is that correct?
That repeals the ordinance unless they are willing to give the voters a voice, a choice.
Which they weren't.
Which so far they have not been. But they probably will prefer to give the voters a choice rather than calling for two elections.
So this could just have the effect of a power play to get them to give them the choice
That's
and
all.
not
That's
through
all.
this proper procedure.
When does this have to be in for them to be able to handle on
A
August 12th?
referendum has to be in within 30 days of the time that you first circulate it. And with the
And how,
signatures that we're getting, I think it will be in long before that. I would hope we'll have it completed before the end of next week, which should have no effect on the meeting of the election.
30 days from when you first circulate it, but how many days before the election?
It doesn't have to be any number of days before the election. It has to be within 30 days of when it's first circulated.
Oh, and you could present it to the borough.
And they will be, the assemblymen will be aware of this next week. They'll have copies of it, same as I gave to you.
How do they? It goes on a ballot.
It has to be
And-
put on a ballot. You can read 29 in relation
But
to
yeah,
the
but to go on the August 12th ballot, it has to get on at a particular time to be printed out.
That's right.
So
And they will be aware that it's on the way long before the closing date for their advertising for this election. Therefore, it should have no effect on this election except for them to put it on.
so they could up to like the 22nd of. actually up to about the 25th.
23rd, up until the 22nd. They could
They
go in
could get it
and-
on the ballot and
That's
get
right.
it printed up.
and not affect the election. And if they are aware of the wording and how the count is coming along by that time, I expect they will, even if we are short of very few votes. But I don't expect to be short votes by that date meeting.
All right. Let's say,
Signatures.
let's say this initiative goes on, you have this referendum goes on,
Then the initiative wouldn't, if they give the choice, the initiative then is null and void because the people have been given a very close, practically identical choice.
can they, however, give a choice after this last Monday?
Yes. They can give a choice up until the 22nd of this month and not affect the
For the
election
August
at all.
12th election?
For the August 12th election.
I'm going to frown in dates.
That didn't jive with my understanding of the pressures of time.
All right. They have to arrange with the newspapers 5 days ahead of time for advertising. But they can give the advertisement that's going in the ad the last day to the newspaper.
it's
They have to
different.
hold a space.
It's different, Frank, from our timing on the charter for some reason. Because it doesn't require all the procedures that the charter does.
Well, now what happens then if, suppose the assembly stands pat, or suppose the assembly were advised that, and I hate to even suggest this because in itself it's controversial, that there is a question about the application of the referendum to the subject matter. Consider that.
I am told that it applies to this subject matter as well. I have been advised that it wouldn't apply, that you could not put a whole charter on as an initiative because there have been specific provisions, but that you can put anything that would apply to the charter on, individual items, or the same on any individual item in relation to elections. Any subject, I don't mean any item. You can have more than one item so long as it's the same subject.
Could you
In
explain
the ordinance
the
or
last
referendum.
census card? If the voters choose the new unified government, which is different from either the city of Anchorage or the greater Anchorage area borough present government, all assembly members will be elected at the same election as provided by the initial election under the charter.
Mhm.
Mary, were you thinking that you would have this, your signatures by tomorrow or Thursday?
If the regular borough election took place on October 7th, if the initiative was to affect that regular election, if the initiative was to be put on that regular election, it would have to be in by tomorrow afternoon, by the closing of business day tomorrow afternoon. But if it were completed beyond tomorrow afternoon and the election took place on October 7th, it would automatically go on the ballot of the following year if the borough continues to be a borough and we don't have any government as such. All right. But if the Assembly, as is quite likely, postpones the October election because of the date that the Charter Commission has proposed to have the charter on is September 9th, and because they don't wish to have officials filing and not knowing whether the office is going to be there or not, it's unlikely that the regular election will be on October 7th. And if it is at a later date, say in November, then I have, instead of tomorrow for the initiative, I have until that much later, say it's 90 days before when the regular election takes place, that the initiative has to be turned in.
problem that I see offhand with that situation. The regular election is October 7th for the city and cannot be changed by the city charter. So,
It may run into a problem on that score.
so you'd have, that would be the next regular election.
But it is the next regular election of the borough. It's not the next regular election of the city. This initiative has nothing to do with city elections. It has to do with borough elections or with chartered elections. So it does not reflect on the cities. It's on the boroughs.
I don't see how it can have anything to do with the charter election. Huh?
Because of the way it's written, it would.
What would it do to the charter election?
It would do exactly what the Charter Commission requested the Assembly to do for it. It would give the folks the chance to choose. It would give the voter the choice. It would
Chairman,
do
that's not
exactly
what I
what the other.
I'm getting
Mr.
the
Parsons.
feeling that the initiative is
Parsons.
written in such a way that it is bound by the initiative. And my understanding of the writing of the charter is that it's not bound by any existing statute, that we are creating a new constitution for an area government, frankly.
Mr. Chairman, I think nothing that, as I understand it, Jim, nothing that the Assembly does binds us unless we want it, unless we choose to be bound by it. And I think the same would apply here if we elected in our charter. And I think that was a theory we talked about, that had the Assembly put on two plans and the voters chosen one, there was a consensus to take that result and incorporate it by reference. But that would be our action. And that would,
Okay.
Now if the initiative and referendum is so worded, and I don't know if it is, to say that the results of the voters' choice binds the charter, that's improper unless our document
You folks,
agrees to it.
This group requested this sort of a proposal be given to people by the Assembly. The Assembly didn't choose to do it. This initiative and referendum proposes that this sort of a proposition be given to the people to vote upon. If you change your minds and do not wish to accept the vote of the people on it, there is the possibility that legally you could go to court and win it.
Who could?
The Charter Commission could.
Mary, what is
If they change their mind and don't wish for people to have the choice.
Well, what is the effect of this procedure on the date of the charter election?
None.
It still is early in September.
None. It has no effect whether you want the charter on the August 12th, or whether you want the charter on September 9th, or whether you want the charter at a later date. It has no effect on the charter election as far as I can tell, unless you wish to have it have effect. All it does is assure that the people do have a choice as to the sort of districting, just as we requested the Assembly to give them. That's all it does.
Our June 18th minutes. Covers that. So you all know what you voted on the June 18th meeting. Mary moved and Joe seconded following that the commission suggests to the Borough Assembly that the people be given the choice on the ballot between single-member and multi-member districts, and the Charter Commission will accept what the voters choose and adopt that by reference into the charter. Jim Parsons, who supported districting, which includes some at-large candidates, said he objected to restricting the motion to two choices. Mrs. Troney said she didn't object to more choices. Jane Angwick moved, and Lisa Parker and Joe Josephson seconded. to amend by recommending to the Assembly that they can opt for any variety of reapportionment choices, but including at least single-member and multi-member districts, and the charter will adopt the voter's choice. There's several comments, and the vote on the amendment was unanimous. Then the motion as amended, the roll call vote was 6 in favor and 4 opposed. The 6 in favor were Anglick, Troney, Josephson, Holmes, Parker, and Sturgill-Liskey. Those opposed were Chai, Parsons, Reed, and Sheffield.
Mr. Chairman?
Change my mind.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I get the feeling that we're kind of drifting aimlessly and not really coming to grips with anything. We're kind of rehashing old ground. As I see it, we have two things that we as a charter commission, separate from the Assembly, have to grapple with. And one is the date that we are going to set for the election of officers under the new government. And the other is the apportionment plan under which those officers will be elected. And we can elect to do several things with reference to the apportionment plan. We can elect to request the Assembly to do the referendum. We can adopt by reference the one plan that the Assembly gave, which is slightly divergent from what you just read in your motion, which was to ask them to put a choice on. And we can provide in the charter our own plan. Those are the three options that we have, as I see them. Or we can put into the charter a choice of two different plans. Now, to get something on the floor, I would make a motion at this point, if it's in order.
I believe a motion would be in order.
I would move then that we place in the charter plan number 5, that the charter election be held on September 9th, as we've agreed, and that at the same time we have the election of officers under the new government. Which would be on the same ballot with the charter.
Are you finished?
I'll second for
When you say plan number 5, you're talking about the plan that was, the Assembly plan that was adopted?
No. Plan
What is
number
plan 5?
Plan number 5 calls for 5 two-member districts and 1 single-member district. It's the so-called compromise plan between the multi-member and
Okay, I
single-member
think I know
districts.
which one it is. And that would be the only plan.
That would be part of the charter.
What I'm getting at, we would not confuse the voter with all this gobbledygook we just ran through.
There would be only one plan.
There'd be one plan, you'd either accept or reject it, and there'd be no choice between any other plan, right?
Vote on it just like they vote on this
That makes sense.
package.
There are really two elements to this motion, and I would be amenable to a division of the question. The one element is whether there should be an election of officers for the new government done concurrently with the charter, to be on the same ballot. And the other is what apportionment plan we should have and how we proceed with that.
Well, now, is it, Mr. Chairman, is it in order for me, can I amend that motion by asking that we adopt what the Assembly adopted in lieu of plan number 5?
There's a second here.
That would be a substitute motion.
Right.
It would be an amendment.
I think it's an amendment, one of the
It doesn't matter what the amendment's going to be.
But what I'm saying is that we adopt whatever the Assembly came up with last, on their last go around, and then knock all the confusion out of this.
Chairman,
This is
has it been seconded?
Second.
Second from Parsons.
I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Yes.
I sincerely feel that this business of saying that it confused the voters is the same sort of excuse that's used behind the Iron Curtain when they give voters, when they're allowed to vote, no real choices, but only a chance to say yes or no. I think that our voters are a little bit more sophisticated than that. I think they're able to read lines. I think they're able to understand that apportioning is by population. I think they're able to understand the philosophical differences between single-member and multiple-member districts. And I think that it is desirable for the voters to do the choosing. When it was in relation to the Assembly making the choice, I did have a feeling that it was a conflict of interest for the Assemblymen to be choosing the districting under which they would hope to be elected, rather than it being the voters' choice. But that didn't affect their choice, and I think it is up really to the voters to choose what sort of districting that they prefer having their Assemblymen elected on.
Bob, point of order, Mr. Chairman. Are we talking about the amendment by Mr. Chai to substitute one plan for another?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chai. I'm not as conversant with what goes on behind the Iron Curtain, so I can't speak to that from area.
Do you want me to talk to that?
Yes, would you please? Because I'm a loss there. But let's talk about the intelligent voter that she refers to. And I think he is very intelligent. Intelligent in the sense that the voter elected us as a commission to do something.
That's his smart, right?
He thought he was doing,
Sometimes I wonder.
he thought he was doing something smart when he elected.
Some of the members.
Each of us have personal doubts.
It's a sad disappointment. It's a sad disappointment what it has come to. But at any rate, he elected us on the hope that we knew what we were doing and could represent him and ably make a selection, which would be the proper selection that would satisfy us. He did not elect this commission for us to come back to him and give him a bunch of choices and tell him, now you can select this and that, wishy-washy about everything. We're either going to be a positive commission or we're going to be a wishy-washy one and end up with our heads in a paper bag. It's as simple as that. Now, as I say, I don't know how they do it behind Iron Curtain, but I know in Anchorage, the vote is pretty intelligent.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I think the debate should be limited to whether, if and when we adopt the main motion, we insert Plan 5 or the Assembly plan. That's the
Point of information, is 4th of July weekend over?
yes.
I'm glad to hear that. So none of us will be wrapping ourselves in the flag any further on the issue. We'll vote on the straight principle.
Having received advice of counsel, both sides, is that right?
And which issue you're referring to, Frank?
Whether the 4th of July is over?
Say to motion on the floor, and I'll rule that we will, and we'll go from there. If there's any other discussion
Mr. Chairman.
that goes to the motion, I'll accept it. Otherwise, the debate is cut off. Mrs. Holmes.
Mr. Chairman, one of the considerations that I have in not speaking to Mr. Chai's amendment, or not speaking in support of it, is that if we adopt the idea of having the officers elected at the same election as the charter, we must provide only one plan for those voters. We cannot provide a choice because the officers are being elected at the same time and they must file on some known district. Now, since we are not able to choose or to give the voters a choice between the single-member and multi-member districts, the Plan 5 appears to me to be a reasonable compromise between the two. It gives Eagle River basically one seat. It gives multi-member districts, but smaller districts than the districts that would have 3 people. It seems to represent a fairly good division of the community as far as neighborhoods and so forth. And the charter would be open to amendment, or the reapportionment portion would be open to amendment at any later date, provide the choice of single-member districts.
Jim? I think Mary asked to put for the floor.
I was going to propose to amend that to separate the question of the officers being elected at the same time. I do understand that if you're going to provide for the officers to be elected at the same time that the election, the charter goes on, that you do have to choose a plan. I do question the proposal that the officers go on the election at the same time without knowing that the charter is going to go up or down. It does have some advantage, though, in that it gives the voter an idea of who would be trying to implement the plan in general. It might be an advantage, the same as it might be a disadvantage. I do not know.
Is there a second?
Well, she's asking for division of the question.
I'm really asking for division of the question. And in other words, vote on whether or not you want the officers elected rather than at the same time, rather than voting on the plan to be included with it if the officers are elected.
Before asking for division of the question, don't we have to dispense with the amendment first?
Okay.
I had asked to respond to Sherry, and she makes a very good point in Plan 5. However, I ask consideration of the fact that by what I'm saying, and I'm looking for unification really, between political factions, it would be much nicer if we have the assembly on our side, along with what we're trying to do from a political viewpoint.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Adopting that.
Josephson?
as I understand Plan 5, it would provide for effectively single-member representation in the Eagle River area.
That would be the only place that they'd have it.
And I think that that is a tremendous selling point for the charter in that area, which we regard as one where a lot of confusion may exist about the role of the charter vis-a-vis separate borough government and so forth. And particularly if the other plan of the second-class borough does not provide them with that single-member representation, Plan 5 is a way by which the charter becomes relatively attractive, I would think, to the voters of that area, especially if they understand that they can still pursue their local boundary commission remedies if they desire.
The people in Eagle River, I don't think that's going to swim. If they want their own routine, they're going to want their own routine. I don't know that we're going to buy them with anything, really.
Well,
they're pretty well determined on what they want to do.
some people.
Is there more discussion to the amendment? If not, Chair will entertain a question.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, would you repeat the amendment? Would you
Yes,
state the amendment?
Mr. Chai moved to amend and Mr. Parsons seconded a motion to read place in the charter plan, what is it, 2?
One.
Plan 1. Plan the assembly accepted. Rather than the motion, the primary motion was to place in the plan, in the charter plan 5.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. Fred, did you intend to adopt by reference or to actually put the plan in the charter, or is that not
Actually, put the
important?
plan in the chart.
Does that do anything to the rest of Sherry's motion?
No.
No.
No, it shouldn't have.
Is there any further discussion? All right, Anvic?
No.
Shy,
Yes.
Boney,
No,
Holmes,
No?
Josephson,
Yes. I mean, no.
You're right the first time.
Parker,
No.
Parsons,
Yes.
Reed? No. Two noes and two yeses and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right?
6 no.
6
Six
noes.
noes. The motion failed. Amendment to the motion. Now, we've been asked for a division of the question.
Is that, Mr. Chairman, point of order, is a request for a division of the question automatically
No.
granted?
No, but it's in the
It has to be
discretion of the
voted
chair.
on.
That he can either call for a vote or do it at his chair.
Is there discussion on whether there should be a division of the question?
What?
I think so.
I've got a book here if I want to look it up.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to be difficult about this. I just wonder if we can intelligently discuss the two separately and which part the chair would intend to raise first. In other words, if the question of whether to elect the officers simultaneously occurs, that more or less decides that something must be in the charter. If you discuss the other way around, though,
Might eliminate the election of officers thereby.
Mr. Chairman, it would not necessarily be essential for it to be in the charter. If the Assembly does accept the referendum and the ballot would go on August 12th as before, you would know after August 12th as to what the people had chosen. And it would not necessarily dictate that you have it in the charter September 7th, unless you're going to require the people to file before, say, the 20th of August.
Mary, that only gives them 30 days to vote.
It does.
Mrs. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, the timing on this would be, Mary, that you would have to advertise, or you should advertise, in the week of the 21st to 25th for the seats available under the new election. And so, or under the new government. And so,
Of July.
right. And so you would have to know, essentially, if the charter is presented on the 21st, during that week you would have to begin advertising no later than the 25th for the positions available under the charter. And would you know by that time whether
No, I
the
said that you
Assembly was
wouldn't
going
know
to
until
put...
about you wouldn't know until about the 15th to 20th of August, which would make it a very
So
close. But you could, if you
but-
want to.
But you wouldn't know, you couldn't even do it, because under the borough election laws, Mary, you would have to
The
know
borough election
laws do govern,
laws over.
Required to have it.
That the voters can always reach this question of districting under the charter by initiative and referendum. We've made a good faith request to give 2 alternatives or more to the voters, and we were unsuccessful in that. We could go back again, but we don't have the assurance at this point, and time is of the essence, that the Assembly would grant a request for a referendum, nor is there any assurance that they would rescind, which they've already failed to do, their adoption of the ordinance. We could put 2 alternative plans before the voters at the time of our charter election, but it's still susceptible to the objection that voters are voting on a charter and don't know what the ground rules are at the time they vote, and I think that's undesirable. And for these reasons, I think we're just at the point in time, whatever else happens, where we have to make a judgment, and I think Plan 5's most equitable.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mrs. Holmes?
I'd like to add one thing to what Joe has just said, and that is that at this point, with the vast confusion that surrounds the assembly, the initiative and referendum in the minds of the voters, that to put in the charter an adoption by reference at this point leaves us open to the legislative meanderings of the assembly with reference to reapportionment in the next few weeks, and I think could subject the charter to a vast amount of confusion in the voters' minds.
Chairman Parsons. I concur, and I disagree with Mr. Joseph's evaluation. The time is of the essence. It is of the essence only if we make it so. We are not tied to any of these dates. We can let the city election go by, we can let the borough election go by, and Mrs. Froney's initiative and referendum go by, and let the air clear and make a clean judgment after October 8th. And I see no reason to be bullied into any kind of corner by any kind of action on anybody's part.
Amen.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Joseph.
I'm glad to have Mr. Parsons' concurrence on any basis, but I said that because I think we had reached a consensus that, given the information from Mr. Rowan and comments that I recall Mrs. Froney made and others, that we should have some deadlines for ourselves, and the Charter Production Committee has certainly been working with that in mind.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman, what it is now, the question to the public? Just restate that motion so we fully understand what we're doing.
The motion to be voted on by Holmes, seconded by Hanvik, is to place in the charter Plan 5 for September 9th election.
Plan 5 being
The five,
The compromise
the
plan.
five
Two-man
two-member districts and one single-member district.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Froney.
I had hoped that we would vote on whether or not to have the people elected first in relation to whether we chose this plan. It would make a difference in the way I voted on this plan or not as to how we decided whether we were going to have the officers elected at the same time as the charter. Would it be possible to reverse the order?
No, I think it makes more sense this way.
Well, Sheriff's rule, I think, will run this way, Mary. Sorry.
How about
The question called?
The question was called.
No, but that's not.
Any further discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I'd just like to add, for the benefit of posterity, that the other, in addition to the options that were listed on the sheet, there is the option of just awaiting the result of an initiative and referendum if it occurs. But I think that there may be some complications in that on a legal basis, and that's not a desirable thing to do.
Mr. Chairman, can I say a word? Since Joe expressed why he was voting on it, I personally, you probably gathered from the amendment, would prefer to go number one. But for the sake of harmony and keeping the public on our side and not confusing the public with all this gobbledygook, I tend to favor and will vote yes on Sherry's motion.
Any further discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm a little concerned about what it does in terms of placing all the cards on the table. It's manipulative kind of device, attempted to pressure the various sides, including the Assembly, into a position.
Pressure that? No, Mr. Chairman.
Wow, I hit home.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk to that.
I think it
On the contrary.
How do we put any pressure on them? Because in my
No,
opinion,
I think the lady does protest too much.
no, my only experience was that I sat there last night and had a very rational discussion with them, and they all said, and I figured, well, it's not a pressure reaction at all. I'm saying is
They've made their minds up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the reason we reacted, Jim, is that on the contrary, what we're really saying is that it's immaterial what view they take. We're going to take our own view and
Mr.
proceed.
Chairman,
Mrs. Holmes.
the assembly seemed to say, among other things, from what I got out of what's reported to me, that that they would not object to whatever the charter wants to do, but they feel that for the borough government, if the charter doesn't pass, they want to be the ones to decide for the borough government. And that's reasonable. If that's the way they feel, then I think that we equally have a reasonable position to take, and that is that we, in the Charter Commission, should do what the 271 charters did, and that is to decide on the apportionment plan, which applies to the charter, and pay no attention to what the Assembly does, just as we pay no attention to what the City Council does with relation
I must
to
point
elections.
out, Ms. Holmes, that both of those charters failed.
Well, yes, but probably not for that reason,
This one won't.
and this one won't.
Any further discussion?
You didn't have to point that out.
Question.
Question?
You wish to discuss?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have the same concern that Mrs. Froning has about the order that we're taking with this question was divided in. And my preference also is that we deal with the matter of whether or not people will be elected at the same election first.
Mr. Chairman, this was why I attempted not to have it divided, because I really think that the two kind of hang together in one whole, and I would have no objection to switching the order.
Maybe.
Before we proceed with the question, then come back and take your problem.
Let me ask Mrs. Froning
then
whether she,
It will affect the way I vote, I'll assure you.
in that light, Mrs. Froning, might it not be preferable that we not, you had requested the division, that we
I
not have a
requested the
division?
division.
And even though you're uncertain about the other element, you would still prefer to have the division?
I guess I would prefer to have the discussion as to whether or not the officials should be on the same with the charter before I vote. I guess that's really the thing that I want to hear before I...
This discussion has to take place sooner or later, and if the consensus of the body is to discuss it, I am perfectly willing to accept discussion at this point.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to
I can see offhand, there are some advantages both ways, but I'd like to hear the discussion on the other.
Mr. Chairman, I support Mrs. Holmes' motion for the following reasons. First, there is precedent for it, and lawyers are concerned about precedent. At this time of the statehood election, the question of acceptance of the act of admission was on the ballot at the same time as candidates for the elected governor of the state legislature. And it was also a precedent in our own case when Charter Commission members ran without knowing whether there would be a Charter Commission. Second, I think it connotes an attitude of confidence on our part that the time has really come when we mean business. We're not dealing with ivory tower theoretical cases. We're down to business. The prior efforts failed when there were no candidates on. It would encourage a large turnout of voters at the time that the charter is on the ballot. It would put into the field, frankly, a vast number of people working for the charter at the same time that they are working for their own election, because it's very difficult to run for public office that you don't believe in. I think that in itself would be helpful. It would tend to diminish the opportunities for people to obfuscate the issues by nitpicking at the charter here and there, because the focal point will be on the broad question of whether there should be unification and upon who should be the leaders of that government. And for these reasons, and also, of course, it avoids having a series of special elections. First, an election in August that the Assembly puts on its apportionment plan, then a special election on the charter, then another election if the charter passes for the first office. We avoid that kind of
Or if it fails two more
confusion,
elections.
or if it fails two more elections. So I think it's a bold move by us. We're saying we've got it, and let's roll with it.
Let's do it.
Mr. Chairman, the additional thing that I can add to Joe's beautiful chronology of things is that we would know who it is that would be implementing the charter. At the time that it's voted on, we would have an idea of who the candidates are, and we have given a tremendous amount of responsibility to that first assembly and that first mayor to put this thing together. In the transition as we have it presently written, they will flesh out what we've given to them in terms of a skeleton.
Mr. Chairman, we stop playing with the voter this way.
Call for the question on whether
Call for the
we elect the officials at the same time that we have the charter on the ballot.
I didn't hear you, Jane. I'm sorry.
I'm calling for the question on whether or not we elect the officials at the same time, the same election as the charter.
So we divided the question and we divided on the other basis. And I was
It
willing to
doesn't
entertain
matter.
the discussion, which was what Mary
I
wanted.
appreciate it. I don't care whether the question is divided or undivided or for or against. I'm ready to vote.
Can we vote on
I really think
Why don't we vote
that
on
probably
the whole
the
thing?
proposal will cause certain ones that I think we're going to oppose it to stand up for election and quit opposing maybe. And I think perhaps that Sherry has come up with the logical solution.
Could we have the vote on the whole Holmes motion?
Is that agreeable to Mrs. Cronin?
Yeah.
That's the one who asked for the division of
You
affection.
can do it any old way you want
Rest of the
to. I made up my mind now.
All right.
Then I would like to hear what totally is before us.
What is totally before you to vote on is motion by Holmes, seconded by Anglick, to place in the Charter Plan 5 for September 9th election an election of the officers under the new government at the same election.
All right, let's go with the question.
Questions called. Mr. Chai?
Yes.
Ms. Froney?
Yes.
Mrs. Holmes?
Yes?
Mr. Josephson?
Yes.
Ms. Parker? Did you say yes?
No.
No.
Back to the iron curtain.
Mr. Parsons?
No.
Myself, yes.
And Jane?
Jane?
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 2 no's. A vote. Motion passed.
Good, okay. Mr. Chairman,
We have with us a couple of guests who've come in, Mr. Brigg from Eagle River and Mr. Height. Mr. Height, I understood you had something to talk to us about regarding Section 406 in the first draft of the Charter, 1406. And appreciate your being here and taking the time and the thought to do something about what you're doing.
Chairman, thank you very much. I'd like to point out that I'm the risk manager for the city of Anchorage.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
I am the risk manager for the city of Anchorage.
the wish manager?
Risk.
manager.
I'm really sorry, I don't know what it is.
That's why
Was
they
that-
say-
He's the insurance man. He's the insurance man, the claims man, the protection man.
Protect, go away, go away.
I'm not here, I'm not an officer of the city of Anchorage. I'm not here to express their viewpoint or anything of this nature. I'm expressing my own words. In my job, I handle insurance claims, one of the functions which I do. Section 1406 starts out, no claim may be brought against the municipality. This is what I take an exception to. When I have, or when the city has an employee injured, he has a workman's compensation claim against the city of Anchorage. If an employee of the city, municipality, might be using the term, is driving one of the municipality cars and he smashes into your brand new parked car on the edge of the road in your Mandarin wet chicken, that's a claim. And I've had people who've had their parked cars smashed. And when I tell them, Mr. Jones, you must go down to the city clerk, you must file a notice of claim with the city clerk. And they say, the hell I will. You get me a rental car and get it out of here fast and get the insurance adjuster out here. I think what I'm referring to is the word claim.
Suit, you mean?
If that word could be changed possibly to a suit, whereby you have to have a person designated as the one who's going to receive a legal notice of claim. I use the word myself. The paper's for a legal suit. You just can't go out and give them to the garbage collector as you walk by your door because he's working for the city. You must have something that says claim the suit must be filed with a person. I think that's what this prohibition actually says. But when you use the word claim, that's a very broad term, and I don't know whether it's the wisest thing to use the word claim. I am forced to turn every little claim into the city clerk, which in turn sends them to the city council, who in turn refers them to the city attorney, who in turn refers them to me. Now this can be a claim for a little $7 wastebasket that a lady puts some garbage out on the edge of the street and the garbage man came along with like that. We've had those. That's an awful lot of paperwork for a little tiny claim. I think my main point here is in the fact that when we, as a municipality, do damage to someone's property throughout the city, the charter says you will go and you will file a claim. For me, with an insurance policy in my pocket, you give me a call, telephone, and say, I've got a claim. Can you handle it? You betcha I can handle it. What happened? It's a preferable way to handle that type of claim. It's not a legal suit yet. If they have a legal suit, they'll go and file it and bring it to the city clerk. So I ask you to consider possibly a change of the wording of a claim to the word suit. This would be appropriate.
Ed, is there any other change in 1406 that you... For example, how do you feel philosophically about the requirement itself that they give notice within 4 months?
My insurance company says, I don't care what they say, they can give us notice within any period of time that they wish, and we're still going to pay the claim.
Would the municipality's rates change if the claimant was just subject to the 2-year tort limitation? Do you think?
You have 2 years on bonding and 8 years on property damage, correct? We're going to honor any claim that comes in the door because it's truly not the city that's going to pay, it's the insurance company that's going to pay.
That is something I'm sorry I have to take exception to that.
Well,
But you pay a premium based on experience, don't you?
yes.
And what I'm saying, well, this may not be something that you've researched or happen to know, but I'm asking whether if we just suppose we had no reference to notice to claims in the charter at all, and the normal state, it's not normal for municipalities, but the standard state tort law of limitations applied, where would you be in terms of your premiums? Do you have any idea?
I don't think I would be any better or worse. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't worked for the city for my whole entire life, but to the best of my knowledge, I know of nobody in the city of Anchorage who has turned a claimant away because they did not file within the 120 days.
But I mean, the judge might if it goes that far.
Our insurance company steadfastly says that they will not pay any attention to it because they're the ones who are liable. Now, this is the claimant speaking. They don't want to take it to court. Most of the firms that we use to settle these losses as an adjuster, their comments to me, which are not legally binding on anybody, is that I wouldn't want to see it taken to court. I think you would lose. I don't know. Well, I can't answer that.
Mr. Garnett?
Can I ask a couple of questions? I don't want to interrupt Mr. Joseph's line of question, but I'm somewhat confused about the situation, the experience that we're dealing with.
Could I
Yes,
ask
please.
one more question? Maybe this will. Is there a deductible provision in the city's insurance coverage?
At the present time, yes, there is a $250 deductible on property damage. Next year, I hope to have $25,000 to $100,000 to pay them all.
Under that.
Hopefully, they're all
now, Mr. Height, do I gather that basically the insurance company for the city is just not paying attention to the present city charter provision relating to notice? In other words, it's treating claims that come to it as though this provision in the charter were not there, essentially.
Yes, I would say that.
Okay, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it possible for you to compare what the city's premiums would be but for this provision? In other words, I gather if this provision were stricken entirely, there would be no change in premiums, essentially because there would be no change in the way that the claims are handled.
I would say that if there is any change, which I doubt that there would be insignificant.
What I guess we're
on
trying
the
to
claims that have come into us in the past. Now, if you have in mind $100,000 or $200,000 claim coming in the future, yes, that type of claim would make a difference. There's no
what I'm
question
thinking
about
about, I think what Mr. Joseph and I are both trying to get at is, assuming that the provision in the city charter were honored, would that make a difference in the rates of insurance that the city paid? In other words, would you find a number of claims that could not successfully be brought if this standard or this provision were strictly applied?
Mr. Chairman, in relation to that question, wouldn't state law supersede charter related to the period of time that you've
The
got?
court has allowed municipalities within certain limits to set private statutes of limitation.
Well, for purposes of this discussion, let's assume it's legal, and if there is a court decision to that effect, I'm just curious.
would my claims, or would my premium be less? Is your question?
Yes, sir. Would it have an effect if a provision of this sort were...
If I told my insurance company that I was going to enforce that provision to the absolute minute, and we would take it to the highest court to defend that provision in the court, my premium ultimately might be less by the amount of claims we did not have to pay in the future. I'm sure they would not give me a discount on my premiums for next year, based on the fact that I'm going to enforce that from that point on.
As far as your...
I think there are many more things that you could try to do to reduce the premiums for a municipality rather than this one particular.
As far as the
Sir,
nuisance... Okay.
Would you conversely suggest that court costs for people who did not file a claim prior to our statute of limitations might exceed anything that you might win on a lower premium?
Well,
Do you think that the people who didn't file within 4 months would be irritated enough to take it to court and with those costs to the insurance company up their premium in the long run?
I think 1 or 2 people might take it to court. That cost might up our premium in the long run. Yes, it might. I could give you an example. In 1972, we had a fire hydrant that burst down below the ground. We repaired it. We paid a small water damage claim at that particular time. That person came back to us a couple months back and says that water washed away the gravel underneath my sewer pipe, which has since collapsed and the ground is sunk, and I'm suing them for another $1,000. Let's say that he's right. I think he's got an honest claim and should be paid. If we were negligent somewhere back in 1972, if he's not right, we're not going to pay him. I don't know what the 4 month really does. You could deny that claim on the basis of a 4 month deal.
I understand that the theory of this kind of thing is that if you don't have some limitation, then you're more susceptible to fraudulent claims because you don't keep records, and maybe the fellow who did the work is gone and moved somewhere else or working in the pipeline, and you can't the city, that is, can't reconstruct exactly its defense because it had no knowledge that it was to prepare a defense. I think that's the theory. But the major, I assume that most people who suffer major actions of $100,000, category, are not going to be in that area as much as to whether it happened or whether it's phony. Or, there may be a question of negligence or no negligence, but it's not. It's pretty hard to say that you lost your leg when you didn't lose your leg. Is what I'm trying to get to.
Most of them look phony anyway, but that's from my side of the fence. We have argued with that for 4 months.
What,
ago.
Ed, what do you recommend for language? What's your recommendation for language?
On the form clause?
Yeah.
I would say leave it in. It's a crutch. It can be used. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's going to serve any purpose. But if you feel better in leaving it in,
Well, it's not serving any purpose. I mean, it's just a superfluous word, so I have it in at all. It doesn't serve anything.
Mr. Garner?
Mr. Haida, I was interested in your concern about the administrative problems of small claims and stuff, and would it make better sense from your point of view if such a provision were in to limit it to lawsuits for personal injuries, for instance, or lawsuits or claims or damages over a certain amount or something?
I think that an actual lawsuit, you should spell out in there that it may be filed with an officer of the municipality and designate the city clerk or the other people who legally can be served.
I noticed that the city has a somewhat more precise language, I think, where they say the city shall not be liable in damages for injury by reason of the negligence of the city. I suppose eliminating workman's comp, which doesn't deal with negligence concepts.
That's pretty good language that the city has.
Well,
I mean, why word it so we encourage a suit also, you know? Not that I'm against lawyers, but...
One of the bases for this, basically the desire not to have a suit brought, as Joe said, a year and 2 months later, when the city doesn't know anything about it, and it comes to her for $1,200,000, and the guy's got all his ducks lined up, and the city doesn't even know it. They were in problem.
You're asking me that question.
Yeah.
I think that is part of it, and I think another part of it was mentioned by Joe in terms of fraudulent claims. If you've been familiar with the defense side of negligence cases, you've run into cases where a person claims that he hurt his back. He got a low back injury a year ago working on somebody's floor, the city's floor, somebody with a deep pockets floor, and you go into it, you research it, and you find out that the fellow might have had any number of other accidents since that time which could have caused his back injury, but he is motivated to bring his lawsuit against the deepest pocket he can find, which is typically the municipality. I think this is part of the reason why municipalities seek to protect themselves in this unusual manner.
Chairman, I might add to that in that I think both the city and the borough here have grown to a sophistication in this particular line where we both have a risk manager. We both keep, I'm not sure about Bob out there, but we keep pretty accurate records on claims, injuries, and so forth. We do get this type of claim, not strictly on a workman's comp claim, but through years of gathering claim forms, materials, and names and so forth to keep it filed. Try it sometime. I'm all set for it. Because we are getting rid of these people now because of the records that we have kept in the past. And for a small city just being formed, I think that would be a very good way to go because they don't have the records, but hopefully Bob or I will carry on this function within the new city and we'll be up on these things. But
Well, if there's no further discussion, I want to thank you, Mr. Height, for being here and bringing this problem to us. And I think I'll refer it to Rick and the Charter Production Committee to come up with perhaps a little different wording that would cover some of the items you're thinking about.
Thank you.
I want to give Mr. Briggs an opportunity, if he has anything to say it. If you care.
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to sit in and try to have a little background before the final instrument is prepared.
Thank you very much for being here. Mr. Josephson, Charter Production Committee report.
To begin with, Mr. Chairman, there is circulated for study, and we don't mean to take it up at this time, Article 1, Bill of Rights. Some members of the Commission expressed an interest in this, and I think there are probably two approaches that could be taken. Three approaches. One is to do nothing about it. The second is to have a bill like this, which really refers to specific matters in the Charter by reference. And one option coupled with that, which might be adopted, is that when we get to the Charter Amendment section, we could provide for an extraordinary majority required to delete any of the rights that are provided here or to diminish them. And the third is to do it in a more philosophical way, where you don't talk about specific matters in the Charter, but sort of, the right to a public school system with such and such of high quality, a more of a rhetorical kind of thing. This is pretty specific. So I just put that for you because it's new matter you can think about before the Commission meets again. Then, if you'll turn to the numbered committee reports, I think these pick up very well what's in the single-spaced material. Here, Mary. Here.
I'm guys. Thank you. Now I have it.
Okay. Now you have committee report number 1, which goes to section 11.01. I think the Charter Commission got through the first 10 articles. The change in section A makes it clear that the taxing power is a legislative power that is in the Assembly. And I'll let Mr. Garnett speak to the changes in the second sentence. The old term in this article was deemed to be too restrictive, that there might be some situations where the law would allow you to make contracts or suspend the taxing power. Rick, do you want to add?
Yes, Joe. Briefly, the idea of this whole business about not surrendering and delegating and suspending the taxing power, I believe historically is related to situations that prevailed around the turn of the century when tax exemptions were granted very liberally to particular industries, and there was a reaction against that tendency, and so this type of language became common. What we said was the taxing power may not be surrendered and so forth except as provided in this article, and of course that article was just the short article dealing with the taxing power. It does not say anything about exemptions. There are certain exemptions from the property tax that are mandated by the state constitution and by Title 29. By using our broader phrase by law, which is of course defined, we pick up those that type of exemption. I don't know that there's too much more to it than that, Judge.
The change in section C is really based upon Mr. Reed's point that when someone has a private interest by lease, for example, in lands which are otherwise exempt, such as federal land, that it should be clear that what is taxed is the fair market value of the private interest and not any part of the value of the public interest.
This reads better.
I was wondering why you felt there should be those changes in section C.
Well, all I can tell you is historically, sales tax ordinances, at least in the city, have been put to repeated votes and have been turned down repeatedly, and the community is accustomed to voting on sales taxes.
So 9 times. 9 times. Had a sales tax election. It's been turned down 9 times. And that last time was in 63, I think. Even 63. Yeah.
In fact, there had been some discussion about broadening it and requiring, let's say, an income tax to go to a referendum too, if we can recommend that.
Chairman, I move for the adoption of the changes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Adoption of committee report number 1. Moved by Mr. Chai, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Adopt committee report number 1 as submitted. If there are no objections, so ordered.
Okay, it's been so long since we did this. If any of you others who did this want to chime in, please do so. Going to number 2, we're in service areas, and the first charter, our draft, indicated that a service area could not be abolished except by an election. We deal with the underlined language with a situation where there are typically 2 service areas in which the same service is provided under the same or similar conditions, and where the consolidation of the service areas would promote efficiency. And in that instance, the underlined language would allow the 2 to be consolidated into 1 without a vote. I believe that B and C are pretty much stylistic. Is that right? Or is there a new?
Yeah, and it involves moving the previous C forward to become A and combining B and C to be the present
There's
D.
some substantial reworking in terms of the order of the sequence.
Except that C is new.
Chairman, I move for the approval and incorporation of report number 2 as presented.
Second. Moved by Mr. Parsons, seconded by Mr. Chai. The adoption of committee report number 2. No objection. It's so ordered.
Going to number 3. All right. The old language was objectionable because it said that, to begin with, that an assessment district is established, and there's a section in the charter that says that wherever, for purposes of construction, the provisions of the charter are deemed to be self-executing, and it created some misunderstanding in the public mind that we were, by the charter, creating establishing an assessment district. And so that new language in A will clarify that.
That would read them an assessment district?
No, that's deleted. The
Okay, you're taking that out?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Deletions.
All
Okay.
right.
Underscoring is additions.
In B, a problem was presented that measuring what 50% of the cost of the improvement or service might be would be very difficult, and so the term estimated is added to make it clear that a judgment can be made at the outset as what the estimated cost of the improvement or service will be, and that is the figure that is going to be used. The old language said that an assessment district with respect to which bonds have been sold may not be abolished until the bonds are repaid. Typically, bonds may be sold to finance a variety of projects, and this would permit the abolition or dissolution of an assessment district when its proportionate cost has been paid. Rick? No, I don't have anything to add to. Oh, 11 for... please note page 2. An account or accounts for each special assessment district. We had some technical suggestions that we should allow for that.
Chairman, I move for the adoption of committee report number 3 and appropriations.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to point out for Pat's information, probably typos in A. This is in proportion to benefit received, and on the back page, separate is not spelled right.
That was it was done in my office. So.
And what was the other one, Mary?
On the back page in 1104E, separate is it misspelled. Nothing wrong with the meaning.
It's been moved by Parsons, second by Mr. Chai. Adoption of committee report number 3.
Separate. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm no objection.
If there is no further objection, or no objection, it'll be so ordered. Hearing no objection, so.
Who gave the motion? Second.
Motion was by Parsons.
Holmes,
Okay, committee report number 4 adds a sentence to 1202, a new subsection B. Tax or revenue anticipation notes shall be repaid within 12 months from their date of issuance. I think we had agreed in principle in the commission that we would make that issue.
Yeah, that was a
Chairman, I move for approval.
second.
Moved by Mr. Parsons, second by Mr. Chai, the approval and adoption of committee report number 4.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on this wording myself, and I wonder if the term tax or revenue anticipation note is broad enough to cover the concern that you expressed in recommending this provision. I'm thinking about bond anticipation notes and whether legally that would fall in a different category than what we have.
Frankly, I know I'm the one that raised the question pretty hard. I'm not familiar with the use of bond anticipation notes to the extent I was with tax anticipation notes or revenue anticipation notes.
Maybe it's not a problem in that bond anticipation notes by their nature are repaid from the proceeds of the bonds once they're sold. And I just wanted to raise the question because I wasn't sure about it.
I think it would be worth doing a little research on.
Because presumably, if the bond anticipation notes are to be repaid strictly from the proceeds of the bonds, we probably don't want a time limitation that would require the bonds to be sold within a certain period of time after their authorization. But
Are they considered revenue anticipations? Bond anticipation
my initial
notes
question,
considered revenue anticipations?
I would think not, that they would be distinguishable.
Maybe you better call Eric or Bob and find out whether that is eliminated out of here, because we wouldn't wish to include it in here, I don't
Okay,
believe.
I'll check on it.
I'm not sure of their definitions. It's sort of like lawyers' definitions of words. Each trade has its own definitions. We better check.
Question was called, and if you wish, we'll if there are no objections at the moment, the committee report will be adopted, subject to the report back if there is a question.
Agreed.
Good.
If that's satisfactory, then the committee report number 4 is adopted unanimously. Committee report number 5.
Oh, it's on the back of number 4. It's on the back of. Okay. Okay. In the first draft charter, there was a section 1203, form and manner of sale, and there was a section 1204, sale to financial consultants prohibited. This amendment would consolidate 1203 and 1204 into one. It's also a little less specific than the old 1204. 1204 in our first draft said no persons retained by the municipality to perform services relating to financial programming or to the issuance and sale of notes or bonds may bid on such bonds or notes directly or indirectly while so retained. This, I think, the debate has raged for as long as I've been in Anchorage as to what kind of limitations there should be and whether under some circumstances a financial consultant should be allowed to provide.
Mr. Chairman, I think it maybe refers to the idea of the notes, and that in some instances the only people who are likely to bid would be those firms which might have also at some time been financial consultants to the borough or the government. And so to make a simple provision just won't do it. What you need is a complex one, and that ought to be instituted by the legislative branch of the municipality. Is that fair to say, Rick?
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the points is that recall bond advisors are often bond sales consultants as well, and they may also be bond buyers or sellers.
Recall or refunding?
Refunding. Yeah, the refunding sort of thing.
Referendums and recall.
I'm all flubbed on my words. I didn't mean that, but I said.
But you could have been right.
Is there any further discussion on committee report number 5? I move for its adoption.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Chai, second by Mrs. Holmes, adoption of committee report number 5. If there is no further discussion, no objection, it's so ordered. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to skip back to Mrs. Antek's single-spaced notes before I go to committee report number 6. The committee did not recommend any change to section 14.01 or 14.02. Her notes indicate that in 1403 we did have discussion in the committee as to whether the Charter Commission should try to set some overall ceiling on campaign expenditures, which
What's that?
in 1403. It's in her single-spaced material. It's not.
The one July, dated July.
Page B,
Okay.
3, July 5th.
The Charter Commission has various options. It can be silent about campaign expenditures. It can set ceilings on them. It can direct the Assembly to set the ceilings. And it can do pretty much the same thing, not only with expenditures, but with campaign contributions also for local office. We did not in the committee reach any judgment as to that, but we're noting this as a potential policy issue that you may want to address. Having said that, and that kind of keys it to anyone who wants to offer something to that. On 1404, as worded in the original charter, Section 1404 would appear to deny an official the opportunity to run for another elective public office, which, if he were elected, he would assume during the term for which he was elected. That is, a person elected as mayor could not run for Congress if his congressional term began during the term for which he was elected as mayor.
Even though he resigned.
Even if he resigned, exactly, even if he resigned.
Say that again?
I'm saying, if a mayor were elected, let's assume that a mayor were elected in 1975 for a 3-year term, and he resigned in 1976 as mayor to run for Congress. He couldn't do so, or at least the argument would be made, I think the court would uphold him, but a cloud would be cast on him because he would have to assume office in Congress during the term for which he was elected, that is, during the 3-year term for which he was elected as mayor, even if he was no longer mayor.
Oh, I understand.
Okay.
You're explaining why to delete during the term.
Right. So
I agree.
so the prohibition would read while in office instead of during the term for which elected.
Ms. Sharon, or Joe, since this has kind of been referred to me to look at again, I would like to ask if a decision has been made or if the question has been considered whether the mayor, for instance, will be able to run for Congress while in office. The language we have here, of course, says that he could not hold a seat as a congressman while he was holding a seat as mayor. Of course, the question comes up, say, in other cities, Philadelphia, in my experience, whether the mayor can run for Congress and still be mayor.
I understood there was a constitutional problem in prohibiting him, and it would seem to me that
I'm not sure. I
it would be
really
an additional qualification for the office.
of a congressman.
Yeah. That you can't run because in other words, you have to be X age and a resident of the district and not the mayor.
I'm not familiar with that case, Joe, but it's something that could be checked depending on how the commission wants to do it, if anything.
Is there any discussion on your feelings regarding, we'll say, the mayor or an assemblyman running for Congress at the same time that he's holding the office, as long as he doesn't hold it later?
I really don't think we can prevent it.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can prevent it. Lisa?
I don't have any disagreements about that, but I do wonder about the remainder of the section, which
Tells
you know,
us,
they
yeah.
can't hold compensated municipal employment for a year after he's left office.
That was referred to Mr. What was your mandate on that, Rick, as you understood?
Whatever it says here.
1404.
Okay.
We're still talking about 1404?
Yeah.
It's the same.
The idea was I think what the committee wanted to emphasize was the same problem that the state deals with. Namely, they don't want an incumbent, an officer, to be able to hold a job that he participated in creating, or the specific salary of which he participated in increasing, excluding the sort of across-the-board salary increase. The Andy Warwick problem, we were going to try to write around that.
Can we somehow get in it that he would, if he were appointed a position where the salary was increased while he was a participant in the increase, that he could hold office if he accepted the lesser salary?
We could. I think we could.
I sort of think that's fair, rather than excluding him from being eligible for the job.
You know, like with Andy Warwick, he didn't know Jay Hamlin was going to be elected governor.
Well, sure, this is the type of thing, I think when the committee talked about it,
Sure.
as far as the Andy Warwick type situation was concerned, I think the committee felt that a person in his position should not be excluded, where he only participated in an across-the-board salary increase, not a specific little sinecure. Hmm?
You didn't MC last Thursday.
Yeah. So,
Is there further discussion or direction to Rick?
Carry on. Carry on.
We got a direction to carry on, Rick.
Yeah, I think you should
I have
come
a
up with
comment.
some wording, Rick, with that difficult little situation.
Okay, very well.
I have one comment to get through with 1404.
I believe, Joe, you're done with 1404.
You're through with that.
Well, the motion hasn't been adopted. Has it to adopt while in office?
Have we made the motion?
I would move to adopt the underlined language while in office and to delete during the term for which elected.
Second.
Good. Moved by Mr. Joseph and seconded by Mrs. Holmes and Mrs. Crony that we adopt the portion of the phraseology in section 1404, adding while in office and deleting during the term for which elected. If there is no further discussion on that portion of it, it will be so ordered. Mr. Parsons?
Well, I'm objecting to it.
All right.
This would prevent someone serving on a commission such as this without recompense if they were an employee of the municipality.
No.
Yes.
Yes, it would.
Which provision are you looking to?
I'm reading, except where authorized by ordinance, an elected official of the municipality may not hold any other elected public office, municipal office, or municipal employment while in office. We are elected officials, we get no recompense. It would effectively prevent you from yeah.
Yeah, there was some discussion we had on that.
Well, I
could we
feel strongly
No,
if we were preventing citizens from serving on things,
Well, if they're employed by the municipality,
that should not.
there could be a conflict, though.
It could be, but at the same time, it should not abridge their responsibilities and opportunities to participate in the government process for which they were receiving no recompense, kind of thing, such as, for example, if I decide to go to work for the borough and we're on this commission, this would not permit me to do so.
That's right, and it shouldn't, because you'd be so heavily biased running for the borough, you wouldn't have your own throat.
Prejudice is the word with the borough.
I'm sorry. 1402 got to me.
Mrs. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, this particular commission is an exception to the rule. That,
Right now it is.
well, a charter
I'll say
commission
it's an
is
exception.
an exception to the rule. Generally speaking, the elected offices that you would have would be ones which in some way, shape, or form regulate the employees of the municipality. And that I do see as a conflict.
I agree, but this does not cover the instance that I presented.
This particular commission.
Right.
Chairman, may I?
Mr. Josephson?
Mr. Reed, how about passing the goodies this way?
Jim, the change that I think is before us, the underlying while in office, isn't your problem, is it? But that amendment of the committee doesn't.
The motion speaks directly to these words only. I tried to reword it, rephrase it for the record. on that basis.
I mean,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I'm still concerned with the whole thing. It's something we passed over before, and someone discussed it with me this week, that by, we are talking about a segment of the population that now is the second largest employer in the area, the federal government, and then the municipal and borough government, and to delimit those individuals from participating in the government process. The Hatch Act limitations are being lessened at all levels to allow participation of people in the government process.
Not completely.
No, but they are being lessened.
Very, very minor lesson. The Hatch Act is still most restrictive.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Brody?
I'm wondering if we really are not fishing for something that is in the nature of where the policies affected by the elected office would have to do with, by the elected official, would have to do with affecting the job that was being held in a municipality or something of this sort. I think we're talking about a policymaker on two levels, rather than a policymaker and someone that is far down the chain.
We didn't say it that way, if I read this right.
No, we didn't say it that way, and I'm wondering if we are fishing for something like that with Jim's questioning.
It's the same thing that there might be someone who works for the borough who might be a fine school board member. It's a different level of government, but at the same time, should he be prevented from running the school board because he works for the borough?
I think you're opening Pandora's box when you listen. You have all kinds of abuses going on.
Now here, Mr. Child, we've got a corner on him now.
Oh, hang on to it, Mary. Hang on to it.
We're done.
Come on, let's
No,
go
it's all right.
right here. Come on.
Thank you. I didn't want it to constitute a bribe.
You can try.
Is
Well,
there any further discussion?
I understand the section, well, the whole charter comes back to us for a last look, in any case, and this particular section has some instructions to the attorney. So I still reiterate that the change that the committee recommended, as far as it goes, is therapeutic. I agree. Question on the motion.
Question to call. All those in favor?
All right.
Those opposed? So ordered.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman, before we go on, this is 1402. There's no change to that on that.
That's right.
Well, no, that's correct.
Now, for the record, I don't know why we single out one commission to the detriment of the other. I think the whole thing should be either struck or all commissions, pardon me, mentioned. I don't know why we single out particular one. Let the record show that.
The record will show. Just spoke loud.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Brody?
on 1403, I guess I philosophically feel that every last dollar of campaign contributions should be accounted for. Having seen the evidence of one former borough assemblyman that, in running for state office, claimed that he had 60 plus donations under $100. When you have a limitation that you don't have to account for underneath any particular figure, I think it leaves it open to abuse. Having seen the Assembly's ordinance on conflict of interest that finally tripped up the author of the ordinance, and having the figure set by the Assembly at the figure that is normally donated, above which the Hemstreams Union does not normally donate to any one candidate, I have considerable concern about every candidate not having to count for every dollar received in contributions.
Lisa?
Wasn't Wilda Hudson going to supply us with some language for this section and campaign disclosure?
That she was. Would you like me to pursue that for the next?
Yeah, because
You're always going to finagle. You can't stop it. I don't care what you say. You can write all kinds of things. Smart guys will get around it. Be realistic.
Well, I'd like to be realistic and say that every dollar should be accounted for.
Well, that sounds nice on the surface, but you know what isn't going to happen.
Good.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Joseph?
If we can, we'll come back on that issue and I'll consult. On the matter of public meetings, you raised, Mr. Chairman, the point that is mentioned on page 3 of Mrs. Zantek's notes, that is, the possibility of including language that action is not to be taken between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m. except in the case of an emergency as defined herein. I'd like to try my best at recapitulating the debate. Mr. Reed, of course, can speak as the major proponent of that for himself. And Mrs. Holmes spoke to it too. Mrs. Sturgill-Lipsky's view was that no such limitation should be provided, that the result would be, as I understand her view, that the work has to be done at some time. It'll be done in more meetings, and that will make it even harder for the public to follow, or it will be done during the daytime working days, which would be harder for the public. And that the problem is basically one of workload. The other position, I think, has to do with if there is a fixed deadline, people will become more efficient, for one thing, and at least the public won't be in the position of waiting around past midnight to be heard, and assembly people or others on boards or commissions won't be acting in a very tired state out of just fatigue. And maybe others in the committee want to speak to this, but it's a policy question for the commission.
Is it, Mr. Chairman, appropriate at this time to make a motion to adopt the change?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
I so move.
Second.
Move to
Mr.
adopt
Chairman?
by Holmes, second by Scott. Yes, Ms. Holmes?
The first time this came around, I was in favor of this, but not adamantly so. Since that time, I've been appointed to the Planning Commission. I've sat through a couple of meetings, one of which lasted until close to 3 o'clock in the morning. Long about
4.
Yes, I'm sure you have. Long about 3 o'clock, we were asked to act on amendments to the zoning ordinance. Well, being a relatively new commissioner, I'm not sure that had much to do with it, but at any rate, it was a very technical matter, and I actually found that my brain was numb. I requested a postponement, and it was not postponed. I found myself in the most uncomfortable position of having to vote on something which my brain could not comprehend at that hour in the morning. Sitting out in the audience were between 7 and 10 members of the Maranatha Baptist Church waiting to be heard. I find that I served no public good voting at that hour. I don't know what I did. I still haven't figured it out. The Maranatha Baptist Church people did not have any more faith in government because they had to sit there until well nigh 3 o'clock in the morning for their case to be heard. And I submit that a 4 o'clock meeting in the afternoon would not have been more difficult for them than 2 o'clock in the morning, especially since there were 2 7-year-old children with them. So I heartily support this change.
Mr. Chairman,
Mary Coney?
I too support it. I have sat to those 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning meetings, both listening to the Planning and Zoning Commission, Planning Board, and with the Assembly. And I will assure you there are times between 12 o'clock and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning that I have to have motions repeated several times than I am to the point that I cannot catch what is being said the first time. And I notice that there are others in like situations, just like Terry speaks of, and I do not think it is for the welfare of the public or of the government to have this sort of thing taking place.
Mr. Joseph? I agree. I think, too, there's another element, which is that we liken this to the old view that certain things are not done on Sundays, not as a religious matter, but just to give people rest, you know, from the service of a subpoena or the imposition of government on you. And
the terrible things government can do.
And I think by the same token, it's not unreasonable that, I've said this in the community, that people should be able to go to bed at midnight and sleep until 7 and not have to worry that something was happening to them while they're taking their nightly rest. It's kind of a basic right. So far as we can prevent it.
Question. I'll call for the question.
This would be a change in the last sentence. The language quoted would be added to the last sentence.
I would like to just bring up one thing about it. And I'll vote for it. I want it for it badly. I think it's necessary, but I want the attorney on the commission and the attorney for the commission both to look at it very carefully, that we don't screw up and say something that will prevent snow removal in the middle of the night or some other detail of government.
Of necessity.
Of
Absolute
necessity or
They never move it anyhow, so what's the problem?
well, you understand what I'm saying.
So long as they don't have the beep, beep, beep backup signal connected to the snow plows.
Oh, that's
another thing we
OSHA.
could put in the
That's
charter.
OSHA, you gotta have that. That's OSHA.
It has been.
Gotta have that.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have one other comment in relation to this. I know it is not just the members of the board. I know it is not just the members of the assembly, not just the members of commissions, but it imposes a great physical strain upon staff who is required to back it up. And then that staff is not available to the public during the business hours when they should be.
Where does the language go? It would read at the last sentence, I believe, Jim. 1405.
I might suggest it could be worded a little more prominently and possibly clearly by putting in another section or something of that sort.
Yeah, I'll look for
No,
It's
that'll
not
be
important
format
for it,
if we got the decision to do it. Then
moved. Who moved on that?
I did.
Holmes, Mr. Chai seconded, to adopt 1405 as suggested.
No objection.
There's no objection, so ordered. Hearing none, it is so ordered.
I think that was one of the best moves we've made.
Very well.
She's just sitting over there shaking her head. It doesn't reflect on the record, but all she's been doing all night is shaking her head.
Rick, maybe
Must be
you could,
something
maybe you
wrong.
could help me with Patty's notes, because they don't make any.
Okay.
It was recommended that the phrase within 4 months after the injury occurs. Well,
Mr. Heights,
14, the next change, the next language refers to 1406, which is the notice of claims section, and I think we'll pass that for a report from the attorney.
You're right. Now, in view of what we heard tonight from Ed,
1407, there was some comment that nowhere is a municipal officer called on by the charter to, in his oath, to swear or affirm that he will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Alaska. And
isn't this because some of them may have an alliance with the Iron Curtain?
no,
Was
not,
it purposely left that way to cover them? To be all right?
not under the new government.
Oh.
So,
Fred.
Well, I thought that's what we were doing.
get the way I can see
Take it
it.
out in the news in the morning.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that language be added by the attorney in 1407 to indicate that the oath includes reference to the constitutions of the United States and the state. I think that in fact that's the oath we took, and it should be.
And the charter.
And the charter.
And it says and the charter.
And the charter.
And the charter.
Is that your
Yes,
intent?
yes.
Mr. Josephson has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, was
Mary
it Holmes and Crowley? Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Froning.
I think we ought to somewhere in this phrase get in the phrase something to the effect that the intent is to protect as nearly as possible the total welfare of the community rather than minor interests. Somehow, I don't quite know how to phrase it. In other words, that what I'm thinking too is regardless of the districting, the welfare of the whole community should be looked at. And I'm not sure that that word impartially is quite strong enough.
Mary, maybe we should have it larger.
I don't think that that word impartially is quite strong enough to imply the oath of office does include to look at the welfare of the whole.
Promote the common weal of the entire
But,
community.
Mr. Chairman, I have a problem with that. I think there are going to be situations where it's the assemblyman's duty to do just the opposite. In other words, where an individual property owner is affected adversely, but the interest of the community, the proletarian majority,
Never stand.
Well,
you may have to protect that individual's rights against the interests of the whole
I agree. I'm not saying that you should always go for what, I don't know. I don't know how to express it, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't protect the rights of individuals as well as the rights of the whole group. I'm trying to say that the welfare of the whole community should be the prime interest. And I think it is for the welfare of the whole community that the rights of the individual are protected.
That's understood.
I don't know quite how to express this. I have asked several people that are good with words to try to look at this and come up with a little bit better wording than we have. And as yet, I haven't received back any
And
input.
I promise not to engage in word politics.
My only comment is, that Jesus tried it and they nailed him to a cross. He had to drag his own cross at that.
Mr. Chairman,
I think we might look at it and see if we can come up with a word.
I don't mind trying. I was thinking that if they are sworn to uphold the charter, that would reference the ideals in the preamble, which include supporting individual rights and promoting common goals, language to this effect. We could make it more explicit, but I think the sentiment is there.
Maybe we should include the preamble in the oath. That might just take care of the situation.
Well, the preamble's part of the charter.
It's part of the charter, and they do say they're supporting it. I agree. But I think it would be re-emphasized if it were given as part of the oath.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Hall?
Mary, do you remember what you said in your oath for the assembly?
No, I do not.
She said,
I don't really remember what I said in my oath.
But it did claim to support the Constitution.
But I guess what I'm getting at is that just by having someone make an oath that gets very complicated about all these things, the only way that they're ever going to remember it if they're violating it is for you to throw it back in their face and say, see, you swore to do this. Well, so long as they've sworn to uphold the charter, you can throw the charter at them and say, see, in the preamble it says you promised to do this.
One of the things that I think could be done is that when a person files for office, they have to sign this oath. When they file for office, that they would support it. You see, as part of the business of filing.
I guess I'm unclear as to what the remedy is, that by adding it in two places, that it would make it any
when you
better.
run for
I
office,
agree
you
with your
can't be
principle.
open to all people. You're going to have to hurt some people
Mr.
in your
Chairman,
tenure of office.
I call for the question on the motion I made to request the attorney to prepare the language. And I don't object to something else being added, but I don't know how to do it at this moment.
I would just like to look at it and see whether it's
Well,
feasible.
my only comment is if we're adopting the preamble, it's in the preamble, and we're asking the person to take the oath to the charter, which includes the preamble. And I think in the preamble, you have this, what you want.
Question.
Questions called for. If there's no objection,
Can you read the motion?
you wish to read it?
You can go ahead and write it back. It's all right. Read the motion. We'll get the oath.
Adoption of section 1407 with Mr. Garnett instructed to prepare the language, including the content of section 1407 as recommended. How's that? Get involved.
Okay.
There being no objection, so ordered.
We're moving along very well. There's a committee.
Excuse me, did we cover deletion of 1409?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, if you look at 1409 and 1410, Rick, I'd like you to hear this because this concerns you. 1409 is the adverse possession section stating that the municipality may not be divested of title to real property by adverse possession. It's covered, we think, under Title 29. Is that correct? Okay.
Exactly.
And the question was that if you're going to have immunity immunity of the municipality from losing property by adverse possession, can the municipality or the municipality could take private property by right of adverse possession? There is a section in the report, Title 2973-030, which already covers the thing by general law in any case. So we felt that 1409 is redundant, unnecessary. 1410 seems to us, we didn't have the attorney's advice but on that, to really be redundant of Section 201 of this charter. Section 201 says that the municipality may exercise all legislative powers not prohibited by law. And Section 1410 says that the enumeration of specified powers in this Constitution may not be construed to limit the powers of the municipality.
I think it says the same thing too.
Oh, wait a minute, Joe, let me just catch up with
Okay.
you. On 1410,
1410 and
Okay.
201.
now, all right, you think 1410 may be redundant of 201,
201.
which gives all legislative powers. Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I could speak to that briefly, I really think that the two provisions are speaking to different things. And let me just try this by way of explanation. The Section 201, as I understand it, is in a sense the acceptance of the constitutional grant of legislative power to a home rule municipality. It's sort of a formal thing, as was done, I suppose, in the Alaska Constitution. 1410 is more a matter of construction. Remember earlier in the game when we were first talking about drafting provisions, we talked about a negative pregnant, how when it's a grammatical or philological idea that when you state something in a law or a contract or anything else, if you state something specifically, it may create an inference that anything other than what you stated is contrary to what you were stating about the specific. In other words, if I say, I don't owe you $2.79, that may create the inference that I owe you some other amount of money.
But we've considered that, but we couldn't find anywhere where there was a specific statement of powers. I mean, I thought you were speaking of the sort of the expression of one thing as the exclusion of others, but we don't have any list of powers.
That's true that we don't have a list of powers, but I believe we have instances in the Charter where we say that the Assembly may do something, or the Assembly shall do something. And what we want to avoid is the inference that by stating this specific thing, we were excluding other things that we simply didn't express. And I realize this is somewhat far-fetched, but believe it or not, there are cases where that sort of inference has been drawn from an express statement.
Mr. Chairman?
It's in all model charters and every charter you could ever want to look at, including the Alaska Constitution.
Lisa?
But you said before, and others have said that if we don't say it, then it might apply. That, then that would mean that it does apply. We don't say it.
Let me try again, briefly. As a matter of law, Lisa, I think you're right, and we've gone with the theory, which is true, that the new government will be able to do whatever it's not prohibited from doing. One. Now, you have to look at the question as what will constitute a prohibition on the new government doing something. 1410 is designed to minimize the possibility that this sort of grammatical construction that I'm talking about will be construed as a prohibition. That is, that a prohibition will be drawn from the words of our own charter rather than from some other source.
What you're saying is, maybe I can put it this way. I think your theory is that if we don't have that, then if you look to Section 602, actions requiring an ordinance, the Assembly shall use ordinances. Well, even that says, in addition to other actions for which this charter requires an ordinance. Well, that's all right. The Assembly shall use ordinances to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That it might imply that they can enact legislation on other subjects.
That's right. It might imply, for instance, that the Assembly could not do anything else by ordinance. Could do by ordinance only those things which are, 1, enumerated, or 2, otherwise required to be by ordinance in the charter.
Okay, therefore, and the argument that municipality may exercise all legislative powers not prohibited by law wouldn't be too helpful because law is defined to include the charter, so it's circular that you could say, well, but it is prohibited by law because the charter says what they can do and therefore by inference says what they can't.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Holmes?
I think I understand what this is supposed to say, and I agree that it's probably a good idea to say something like this. Now, my problem is with the specific wording of this,
Okay.
and with the way people who spoke to us at public hearings and others have interpreted it. It's somewhat misleading if you don't know all of Rick's reasoning. You could think that it meant that there will be no limitation, not even the limitation of the charter provisions, on the power of the municipality. It makes it sound a little bit like the municipality is all-powerful with absolutely no restrictions on what it can do. This was the dangerous kind of statement that we felt should not be made, that kind of inference allowed. And I wonder if there's a rewording that would make clearer.
I think we could, Sherry. I lifted this language word for word from the Alaska Constitution, but I think we have faced the problem. We've seen the problem you mentioned, and I think with a few more words
The
we can make it
enumeration
clear.
of specified powers in this Constitution does not infer other
I can make it more clear that we're talking about grammar. From the way I write this thing, I can make it clear that we're talking about interpretation.
This does, Sherry's right, that to a libertarian this means that it's all a farce,
Right.
that the Constitution doesn't bind you to anything and you're going to, Right. So, could you...
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you have any objection from your point of view to the deletion of the adverse possession and to let that fly with Title 29?
I think that's strictly a policy question, Joe. On other matters where Title 29 is spoken to a subject of concern, we've said, well, but Title 29 may be changed, and sort of made independent judgments as to what should be there.
We doubt that. I think Title. I don't think that's a feature of Title 29 that would be changed in any event.
And if it is, there might be a darn good reason why it was going to be.
Well, mainly it might be that the President of the Senate is about to be dispossessed of land.
Adversely possessed.
Yes, or is about to dispossess the municipality of land.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move to delete 1409.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Josephson, second by Mrs. Holmes to delete 1409. There are no objections. No
Now-
objection, it's so ordered. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered.
Okay, now, Mr. Chairman, there's a report marked 1A, which has to do with Section 309, the Ombudsman. This is, this raises a policy question. I hope it's fair to say that we don't have any strong feeling about it, but we noted that executive appointments are confirmed by the legislative branch, and that at the state level, the governor, and I forget the mechanics of it, is given some right of disapproval of the ombudsman chosen by the legislative branch. There is the possibility of just mischief if an assembly decides to pick the most outrageous person possible to maybe on the back of one of the other, to just embarrass the executive.
Second page of the agenda, on the right under the agenda page.
Okay, that's fine, we'll just on
So
back to 6.
this would be an addition to 309 that would allow the assembly to select the ombudsman. The mayor would either approve or disapprove that selection. If he disapproved, the assembly by 2/3 vote could still appoint its choice. I think the result would be that there would have to be some pre-consultation between two branches of government as to the person who would fill this office.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Parsons?
it is my feeling that the ombudsman is indeed a creature of the legislature, and as such, the selection thereof should be maintained by that group without any, if we believe in some kind of division of powers, this is one of those where I don't think they need to overlap, and the way we've written it, I think speaks to it adequately.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Holmes?
There's some concern that since the ombudsman functions day to day in the borough government, that if you did have someone who happened to be at odds with the assembly, at odds with the mayor, and extremely so, if there happened to be a power struggle between the legislative branch and the administrative branch, the legislative branch might employ the ombudsman as a tool to pester Harris, the mayor. And that it should not be difficult for the assembly. And as a matter of fact, it would require 8 votes rather than 6 to confirm over the mayor's opposition.
Why involve him in it at all?
Because he's going to have free access over the whole borough.
It would function best if they concurred in the man. If they don't concur, the mayor can make it somewhat difficult for the ombudsman to function properly. If they happen to concur, he's likely to be more effective.
Well, I think your point is, Jerry. I also think that we have built in a number of balances and checks, hopefully, that permit both a strong mayor to exercise certain powers and an independent legislative body to exercise policy-making areas, and that if we overlap them, there's no sense having the division.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Froney?
I tend to agree with Jim on this particular one. I do think that on the whole, the ombudsman should be responsible to the legislative body, and that he, in a way, is a check-upper on the staff to make sure that they are performing according to the way that the public anticipates and such like. And I don't think that having the mayor to give his reciprocal sort of approval is the same as appointing a commission where you have at least concurrence by the assembly to the mayor's appointments. I don't think it's quite the same thing. Yes, you're right that if you do have the approval of the concurrence of the mayor, that he is more apt to give help to the ombudsman. But I do tend to agree with Jim that it is definitely a legislative function.
Mr. Joseph?
I, for one, would not offer a motion on this if the group is divided. I do think one advantage, though, is that would be impossible for the mayor to undercut the ombudsman by attacking him on a personal basis, because he would be implicated to a degree in the selection process, and I think that's a positive thing.
Mr. Chairman,
I would, in the absence of anybody doing anything with it, I would move that we leave it the way it's written. Because you do need a check and balance with a strong mayor.
Leave it the way it's in their committee report, you mean?
No, leave it the way it's
In the charter? There are a few tag ends here, but we could take a look at next time. Well, we didn't.
Did you go through this?
Okay. We went through everything in the report of July 8th, except the Bill of Rights, which you will study before the next meeting, and the possibility of amending the amendment article, Article 15, Charter Amendment, to require certain extraordinary majorities to amend the ordinance. Also, to require that amendments initiated by the Assembly would require 2/3 of the membership of the Assembly. I suggest that we may want to act on that next time.
I think that was a good thought. I think that was a good thought.
Lisa?
I would ask if we were going to go with the section on utilities. Again. I think we should try to.
You wish to reconsider on section on utilities?
Yeah, are we going to go through that again, or is it the committees?
But we made
that.
Huh?
There was a section. Yeah.
1301.
Okay, 13.
Yeah.
We had a recommendation on 1302 that to change the majority for a sale, lease, or disposal of municipal utility to 3/5 of the qualified voters. There is some sentiment that in a transient moment, a decision might be made to dispose of a municipal asset, and that to give a little more stability to it, perhaps 60% of the voters should ratify such a basic decision. And it was also suggested that the committee and the commission would return to the utility article after we do the transitional article, that they were intertwined, so it will come back to you at that time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for adoption of the change requiring a 3/5 majority in the utilities.
Second.
Move for adoption of
1302.
1302. Requiring a 3/5 majority of
To sell or dispose of.
municipal utilities. Is there any discussion?
changing it to 3/5?
Question?
No problem.
Moved and seconded by,
I think it'll be so.
moved by Sherry Hall, seconded by Ms. Josephson.
Avoid duplication.
3/5 majority in section 1302.
Straight tax.
New tax base, put them in.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
I think we did not act on 1205 according to my notes, and that's on page 2 of the single-spaced report of July 5th.
What section?
1205.
It was previously 1202.
Previously 1206. The old language was all interest and profits derived from the investment of the proceeds from the sale of any obligations shall be used solely for the purposes for which such obligations were issued or for their retirement. Did we approve this change earlier?
I don't remember having done it. Let's take action
Okay.
in case we didn't.
The new language would be proceeds derived from the sale of obligations and interest and profits derived from the investment of the proceeds shall be used solely for the purposes for which the obligations were issued or for payment of principal or interest or other charges with respect to the obligations. I know this was discussed, and I would move for the adoption of that language in case
Moved by Mr. Josephson, second by Mr. Parsons, adopting the language regarding section 1205 contained in on page 2 of the meeting of July 5th. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, it's so ordered.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
that completes the report for tonight.
Are we going to do
Oh, you did what?
Let's do charter amendments.
Mrs. Holmes wants to take up the charter amendment. There are three. July 8th. The report of July 8th. There are three avenues for charter amendment under the procedure, under 1502. One is the proposal of amendments by the Assembly. Another is the establishment of a charter commission. And the third is the initiative. It was mentioned by Mrs. Holmes that perhaps we were already becoming proprietary in our interest here about our product, but hopefully there's a better reason than that to suggest that the Assembly, when it submits for ratification by a majority of the voters an amendment to the charter, should have a 2/3 majority doing that, so that we don't get a lot of propositions thrown out that have only the support of 6 Assembly people, or even a smaller number, which is the majority of the quorum. And it adds a little more stability to the document. It in no way,
Require a majority of the membership.
it in no way affects the right of initiative as far as the amendments.
It adds in 1502 the words after, in the first sentence, amendments to this charter may be proposed and deleted by the Assembly, and then continues to say by ordinance, and adds the following: approved by 2/3 of the membership of the Assembly. So it would read, amendments to this charter may be proposed by ordinance, approved by 2/3 of the membership of the Assembly, or by a charter commission established in a manner provided by law or by initiative petition. Proposed amendments shall be submitted to the voters next general or special election occurring more than 45 days after the effective date of the proposal.
I really think that is a good change. Otherwise, you'll just have, in a temporary fight between parties, you just have a charter amendment used as a device.
No objection. Ms. Froney?
I would like to have wording for an addition to this that would insist that when a proposed change is put on the ballot for a charter amendment change, that the old wording must be given on the ballot for information purpose along with the proposed change, so that there is not confusion on the voter's part when he's in the booth as to what presently exists in the charter and what the proposed change in wording actually is. In other words, I don't want him getting in the booth and seeing only what the proposed change is without knowing what's in the charter presently when he's doing his actual marking of the ballot.
Oh, yes.
Is there any other discussion regarding section 15?
Are you doing that on your initiative now? Are you showing the old and new ones initiative you're passing around? Are you?
Okay.
This
Should we,
initiative is not an initiative for a charter change.
pardon, but should we
No, but
now,
it should be applicable to it.
for the moment, can we address ourselves to this portion of this and get it out of the way? These recommended changes of 1502 in the first 2 lines. Elimination of the words by the Assembly and the addition of approved by 2/3 of the membership of the Assembly. Then we can go on to other changes.
We have one other item.
We have one other.
No objection to that change.
Is there any objection?
It's a good change.
Hearing no objection, the section 1502 is changed by deletion by the Assembly and by addition of approved by 2/3 of the membership of the Assembly.
There
was a motion and a second on
Huh?
that? Motion, no motion, second. I moved it.
I second it.
There's a motion made and seconded.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we were also concerned in the next sentence by the words "or special" before the word "election." That there was a feeling that proposed amendments affecting the charter should only be acted upon in a general election to assure representative turnout.
My point out, of course, that that's the way we handle initiatives within the charter. Any normal initiative procedures or elections are a general election.
Amendments to the state constitution must be at a
The
general election.
So we would strike that from those.
delete the proposal, and I so move is to delete the words "or special."
Also,
Moved by
what?
Mr. Josephson and seconded by Mr. Shine to remove the words "or special."
No objection.
Prior to the election. Any objections?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Object.
All right.
good.
Are there any other objections? No other objections. Motion passes on a 7 to 1 vote. Ms. Parker voting no.
That does conclude our report. Thank you.
That's the conclusion of Mr. Josephson's Charter Production Committee report.
Mary, did you
Is there,
use wording, or would you like to go into
I just going to work with Rick a little bit on it to come up with that.
if you can come up with something firm to consider.
Don't try to load too much into this charter, though. We're making it a procedural directive. We're trying to get forward,
If I can find my agenda now, I'll find out where we are. How about the Public Information Committee report, Ms. Angie?
Did you catch Cornell, who's been in charge of that for the last week?
Just for,
The committee met today.
nothing go quickly. Chemo would like to know if we're wrapping the charter up somewhere around the 20th or 22nd. Would the commission be receptive to a telephone-in program where the commissioners would appear for a half hour on Tuesday night, July 22, between 6:30 and 7 p.m., and give the general public an opportunity to telephone in and have a kind of a last-minute suggestion session. And
It will be a suggestion session because it will have already been,
yes,
there can't be another hearing because we've had our hearings and it already been set and given to the Borough Assembly by the 21st,
okay.
presumably.
If it will be all locked up by that time, would you want to convert it into a kickoff session for the new charter and have telephone-ins like half hour?
We could answer questions as to what the charter has ended up providing.
Okay.
And I think it would be a very good kickoff for the,
He's
Public information section.
He's capable.
At 5 a.m. tomorrow at the airport.
He's capable of initiating that tomorrow morning if, and Jane pointed out, we should check the telephone company to see if they can make an installation on that in time to do that.
aren't there telephone hookups there at the station that could take care of that?
There are some, I don't know.
Don't they have that sort of phone hookups at most of the radio stations that they can take care of this sort of phone in?
I'll be happy to check that out.
I don't see why we should go to the expense of doing it here if we could go to some place where it's already connected, because telephone connections are expensive.
It would be done there.
It would be
Yeah.
nice to do.
It would be done there. Also, he'll be happy to provide another program on down the road. He'll be happy to use our videotape that we get from our public session in news and in public service. And he wants to sit down with Herb Shainlin and see if there's another kind of a program they might be able to come up with that the commission might be receptive to. So shall I tell him yes, if he can put one together for July 22, the commission would be happy to participate?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. KTVA has
The one
agreed.
they call the snakes and the monkeys.
KTVA has agreed to a half hour. Also, they would be real receptive to a telephone-in program later on, perhaps maybe the Sunday before the election. It should be somewhere around the 5th and 9th, 8th, 7th, somewhere around 7th.
7th of what?
September, if that's when it's set for on the 9th. And they too will use the videotape information from the public information session that we would have, the workshop, in their news and in the PSAs, public service announcements. And I did not mention, but KIMO had thought that possibly if we would let them know where those sessions are going to be held or where the session would be held, they'd like to cover that too, in addition to running the videotape that we would provide throughout the following week. And Joe has mentioned that KAKM has offered to kind of host a question and answer format where we can invite those who disagree with the commission. Is that right, Joe? Mm-hmm. And could be more than one time.
Yeah, they want to do it on a weekly basis.
On a weekly basis. Hosted by the commission.
Channel 7.
Good. So it'd be hosted by the commission and the commission.
When you say hosted by the commission, are you talking about the people that come in and visit with us, or are you talking about financing KAKM?
No, public service. We would be hosting, and I don't mean...
Well, I host a
I don't
cocktail
mean
party,
a
I
cocktail
pay for
party
it.
type hosting.
No vote. That's it.
KBYR Radio also will run the news from the workshop for us, as well as PSAs. And I've made contact, public service announcements.
Okay.
I've made contact with a phone company. They have a 15 or 20-day lead time on hooking up a Codaphone. I talked with Mr. Reed, and he said, go ahead and order it. It's $15 installation, $18 a month. There was a mix-up. Today they called back and said that we could only have a unit that would allow us up to 3 minutes of tape-recorded time, and that'll still give us enough time to tell what's happened or where the commissioners are going or whatever the latest news is, 24 hours a day. We hook it up to the first line, 1211. And the radio stations are already receptive to this idea. They're using it with the city at this point, and the guys are real happy. They want to know when is it going to come in and when can we start calling to get the information on the commission. So that'll be something that we can update once a day at least, maybe a couple times a day. We had a luncheon meeting with the League of Women Voters today, and they want to promote the charter. They want to buy radio spots. They want to buy some advertising, possibly on TV. They're a little reticent to go into the coffee type of thing. They feel it's a lot of work at this point for that kind of a result that they might get. But Sandy Stark and Heather Flint met with Joe and Lisa and myself. Pardon me.
I mentioned the chamber meeting. I haven't talked to anybody else about attending a chamber meeting or appearing with me in the chamber on the 21st of July. Or have I said anything about the other, Rotary on, I think it's the 23rd of July, Road Rush. They're both noon meetings, as I understand it, and I'm sure they'll be happy to have more than one charter commissioner there, and
Let's work on that. Did you have to let the chamber know by a certain time?
well, I should not hold off longer than
you want me to call Terry tomorrow and just go ahead and tell her to confirm that? Claire got home tonight. So, okay. And then I need some help, I think, from the research committee, I guess, getting some facts and figures and some stories and some basic things that we're going to be needing to put into the flip charts, the slides, the question-answer brochure, because all of this will come down on us real quickly as soon as the chart is wrapped up. We already have some public appearances coming up on Thursday, of which we're going to have to scare up some poignant things to talk about, and then Mr. Reed goes out on the 21st. Thursday?
Do you have a format that all of us use on these public appearances that we follow?
Well, we don't now. We hope to, and we hope to get the basic information from the consider. And that's Jim's committee.
I mean, what I was wondering again was, how do we stop somebody from talking out of line or something like that? We all should be talking at the same time.
That's what I'm asking for some help on.
Yeah,
So we can do
that's
that.
what we should have before we hit this public appearance, before somebody says the wrong thing.
And maybe coordinating with him, with Jane, we can do something here in the next few days to kind of nail that down. We've run a couple of other news releases, and I was told tonight that the news release mentioned that the meeting's tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and I'll have to check it, but I don't think that was on our news release. But Mr. Jordan said that the newspaper indicated tomorrow was the meeting at 4. I'm pretty sure we have Thursday at 4.
Thursday at 4.
Yeah.
Thursday, what the paper said.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
Well, then it's read Wednesday, I guess.
Well, we go with
We're meeting
Okay.
Thursday night at 4 o'clock.
Well, because
Thursday afternoon.
the evening thing, we've all been invited to the opening of the
Good.
Plus, Mary has her talk, and I need someone to join Mary at the taxpayers' league Thursday night,
What time is
The gold
that
rush.
Thursday night, this taxpayers thing?
7:30.
I think you better
Actually,
check and find out whether that's when they want us on the program.
8 o'clock. 7:30 is a kind of a pre-dinner thing, and 8 o'clock is when the program starts.
I think that
Is that after their dinner, or is that,
So,
it's after their dinner, when we're being invited to show up?
Well, we can make it after the dinner, that's,
which is
the city Lawrence shouldn't take half long.
7:30, that'll probably take half an hour anyway.
Go in, have one drink, shake the guy's butt and leave.
You want to join Mary in that?
Where's the gold rush? Who are these people, these tax
You know them well. You'll like them.
radicals?
No.
In their way?
My kind of people.
Radical- yeah,
J.R.
radical right.
Lewis and Doug Millar and that crowd.
Really? Is that who we're talking to?
You are.
Roy Field.
I'll go.
Congratulations.
I'll go.
Now, Fred, remember, you're representing all of us.
I think something we ought to discuss just a little
I
bit.
followed the human rights thing right down the line. Whatever it says there, human rights.
And Joe's going in the morning to the realtors over at Sheffield House. If anyone else would like to join him at 8 a.m., that would be a real help too.
Tomorrow?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, you said you wanted to do Thursday night, didn't you?
No.
Okay.
I think there's a fine representation.
I'll bring my white horse and the white sheep Thursday night. I'll have that out in front when we talk.
Downtown Lions.
With the,
Downtown Lions would like a speaker on Friday, the 5th of September, just before the election,
speaker where?
at the Lions Club.
Joe,
It's
is
Miller Keller.
at 8 at Sheffield House?
I think Mr. Reed
I'll
belongs
try and
to
go to that.
Yeah, he'd be a good one for that. Caroline.
I sit out there and smile.
And that's all we've done in the last 2 days.
All right, you've just barely gotten started, I can see.
Good work.
One thing I think we ought to talk about before we go out on these things is the approach to the probable tax effects of unification. And I think, from my own standpoint, I think all you can say and all we can say as individual members of a charter commission is that there's no way that we can determine what tax effect will be, that the information we have would lead us to believe there will be small, a very small effect. I think something like that we've got to come up with as, so that, as somebody said, we're all talking out of the same corner of our mouths.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think one of the things that we're going to have to say is that they wouldn't expect the city council to be able to predict what the mill levy is going to be next June accurately. They wouldn't expect the borough assembly to be able to predict at this time of year what the mill levy is going to be next June accurately. How can they expect us to predict accurately? All we can tell them is that we have every confidence that it will not be very different from what it would be had there not been unification, because of the fact that we have provided in the transition that the two governments shall go side by side, and during the process of unification grow smaller, that it should not, because of the fact that they go side by side and start being knitted together, it should not end up being larger. And this, of course, does not take into consideration inflation.
I think any of us that have any suggestions in this line ought to give them to Pat. Maybe we can draft up some kind of a statement that will be a guideline for everybody. I have talked with Mr. Gallela of the Cooper's Lybrand, and he recognizes that time frame is very short for any kind of a survey of tax effects or other things by a CPA firm. He says, however, his pitch to me was that Cooper's Lybrand are unique in the area in that they have on their staff in Anchorage a consultant who has been director of municipal finance for the Greater Anchorage area borough, and who has done the Eagle River Shugak Borough financial study, which they say hit the nose, eventually pretty close on the head. And he also says that their resident consultant would have the time and would be available to do work, and they have much of the background work already accomplished. He did not indicate that, he said that there would be no way that they would accept commission to do a job for us if they felt they could not get it accomplished in time. That's one. And two, he indicated that if we did hire a consultant later for some other facet, or if the charter were defeated and we needed a later consultant after the defeat, they would be most pleased to be considered, and they would like to be on record as wishing to be considered. So I don't know whether the commission feels that we should go any further in getting financial consulting information at this time or not.
Mr. Chairman,
Message from me.
I would like to make a motion that we do not.
Moved and seconded that we do not obtain further, although that's a kind of a negative motion, further financial consultation regarding the mill levies and so forth. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question called for. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So ordered.
Was that a motion to retain for $10,000 a financial consultant?
All right, we have, Joe, when do you want to set the next production committee meeting?
Yes, Jim. Let me turn it
Well, we'll have to do it for Thursday night. I'm thinking Thursday morning.
These are the realtors at 8.
tomorrow morning. 11
Morning at 11. How about that?
or
11.
11:30.
Brown bag. Huh?
11:30.
11. Would you prefer 11:30 or 11?
11's all right.
11?
I'll have to be a few minutes late.
All right. We'll stay there.
7-9. Then the next Charter Production Committee will be at 11 o'clock, Wednesday, 7-9 a.m. Jane?
Next, Public Information Committee meeting Monday at noon.
Monday at noon.
Brown
Where?
bag.
Oh,
Where?
Here, brown bag.
Brown bag?
Maybe we'll get something. Can we buy food for ourselves?
I think we have an FM lunch that noon.
We have an FM lunch at noon? Good.
What's an FM?
Radio frequency modulation.
Lisa?
Monday, I will be at the Thursday meeting.
You will not. Good.
Thursday night
Thursday night.
One,
That's
Thursday
at 4.
at 4.
Is that because it's too early for you, or?
Well, it's too early and then there's, conflicts.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
That meeting will end at what time?
Well, I figured 6:30, 6:15 or 6:30.
So we can all troop over to Sydney Laura.
Yeah, we can get out and go on and change clothes or something to have enough time to do it.
I'm trooping over to Monkey.
Playing tennis.
Playing was a double header.
Jane,
What are they
Jane,
gonna
are
do
you
with
going
this-
to be in the
this
Thursday
thing Thursday?
Thursday
What is it,
meeting
just an
anytime
unveiling of
during?
statute?
It depends on how long the meeting lasts, Bethel, and if the flames are flying. I'd say no, and then be surprised if I show.
Great. All right, so,
Frank, what are you gonna do Thursday night? Just unveil a statute, is that all?
that's all as far as I know. Hors d'oeuvres and cocktails and stacks of. And maybe show you the new auditorium. I did a lot of work over there this summer, and I don't know what it was.
They put in that shit in the back
Yeah.
there for the curtains.
Is there any other, are there any other meetings? Any comments from commissioners? Silence.
I move to adjourn until Thursday at 4 p.m.
That sounds like a capital idea.
Motion for adjournment needs no second. We are adjourned.
Having accomplished great things.
So.
We move on now to the.
Very good.